Hello, my name's Joe Gronow. I'm a lecturer in concept art.
My name is Professor Esther MacCallum-Stewart, and I am a Professor of Games Studies at Staffs University. University of Staffordshire.
New branding.
New branding.
And welcome to Developer Mode. So I'm basically going to doodle today. This is something that I do basically every day, and I think it's something that I wish my students did every day as well. Is just draw and draw and draw, and get ideas down to the page and move them around and stretch them and warp them. So I've got some Ferraris that I started this morning while I was in my office, and you can see that like I've got a pretty normal looking Ferrari up here, and then immediately I've got some kind of strange droopy,
Some bendy Ferraris.
bendy Ferraris, and this is something that, because I do it so often, I've got tons of examples. This is just I've recently been doing cars because I wanted to learn more about cars. And so the way it tends to go is one of the cars on the page is from a reference. I pull up an image and I copy the shapes that I'm seeing. But as I'm copying the shapes that I'm seeing, what I'm really trying to do is understand the 3D form that sort of sits underneath that shape, so that I can take it and I can draw it from different angles and I can bend it. I can almost perform a lot of the processes that you perform on something in like a 3D program, basically. And I can have tons and tons of fun doing it. So there was some RVs in here that were particularly nice. Like, you know, you can go wild. You can have an RV being sucked into a singularity, or punched by a superhero, or dragged down to the depths of the ocean.
Oh yeah, you've got a Cthulhu monster.
Of course, right? You need one on every page. Or these little guys from RV Day, the game. So you can do, honestly, whatever you want. So they start quite tame and they tend to get a bit crazier as they go on. You also notice there are these weird shapes on every page. Yeah. I'm going to do some of them now. Basically, if I'm on the right layer, I have to warm up. And I think a lot of students, they shrug and they roll their eyes when it's suggested that they maybe do a warm-up. And they say, no, not me. That's something that I don't know. I don't know who they think warm-ups are for.
I mean, it's like stretching, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, or practicing writing. Yeah.
Just getting something down. Right.
It's funny because I teach the foundation students, and so we teach all of them. They're not just one lot.
Is it the game scholarship?
Game scholarship, and then also the one where they make a game in the third semester. So I get them right at the beginning and then I get them at the end, which is really great. But one of the things that I noticed that they write in their feedback is that they say things like they're going to draw like a perfect thing every week. And it's like, you're at the foundation. We're here to teach you.
Yeah.
Like 3 years' time, we'll be critiquing, in depth. But right now, just do it. And it's really interesting that, it's really obvious that, again, the ones who practice and do lots of little things have lots of things to show and are closer towards final pieces. Whereas the ones that get really hung up on just one piece, then, they struggle because they haven't done all these kind of extra bits. So what are you doing with the warm-up pieces? Are you working on perspective or angles? I mean, I know nothing about art, so
it's a bit
useful words
of everything. Yeah. Maybe the best way to describe it is that I think essentially when you're drawing, there are two different ways of thinking about drawing. There's like the 2D way of thinking about drawing, and there's the 3D way. People like Harold Speed have described it using words like optical and conceptual. If you want to think about it, you could also think about it as like sight versus touch, right? Okay. So most people will draw optically, they'll draw based on sight. They see, if this was my reference image of this Ferrari, they see those shapes and they go, okay, those are the shapes, and I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them back down over here, almost like an artistic version of Wonka vision in some way or another, right? That's quite useful if you're an illustrator. It's quite useful if you're a fine artist and you just want to do like portraiture or something else. It's maybe not useful at all as a concept artist.
I was going to say, so we're the 3D, and is that why it's called concept art?
almost, you're coming up with ideas, but it's sort of linked in a way. But because there's such a need for us to take something and like warp it and go, what would that look like from this angle? Or what would it look like if I removed bits or added bits or whatever else? We really need to think of the thing as a 3D object, because if I think of this in just 2D terms, as soon as it rotates even like 10 degrees, none of those 2D shapes exist anymore. And I'm sort of out in the wilderness, lost, without anything to guide me. So we're very much in the 3D camp. And these little shapes, they're just, it's almost like I'm doing perspective, but yeah, in a very intuitive sense, because the way we teach perspective is with, have you ever done, maybe when you were at school, any of those, like
a long time ago.
many eons ago, when you were at school?
Pretty much black and white. We didn't even have red pen then. So
The whole world was in sepia.
it was sepia if we were very lucky. I mean, some of those old cars, obviously, that's how I learned to drive. I can't actually drive, but
But maybe you did some kind of perspective-y grid thing, or this might be familiar to some of the people watching. So if I wanted to like draw a cube black, then I sort of have this grid that's lined up, and each point of the cube goes backwards. And this is how we teach perspective as well on our technical drawing module that we have. But if every time you're going to sit down and draw, you want to draw a grid, you're never going to draw anything, basically.
Yeah, other than more cubes.
So exactly. It's such a fast that you really want to get into this groove where you're feeling the form of a thing, which is a strange way to describe it. But in some ways, concept art, I think people, because it's in the games department, they see it as a lot more technical. And in a lot of ways it is, but there's still that fundamental sort of fine art. Actually, you have to be a bit of an artist and just go, this is what it looks like, and know that that's how it should be formed.
And is that why you start with the more realistic version of the image first, so that you can
I get like a
kind of improvise?
Develop a feel for it, really. And it links back to that sight versus touch. I mean, one of the examples that there's a book that this is described in called The Practice and Science of Drawing. And one of the ways that the touch is described is actually the way that children see the world. So,
the big hands theory,
all that stuff. If you've ever had the misfortune of being drawn by a child,
then
they're not very complimentary. But if they ever draw your face, they'll draw your eyes will just turn into circles, and you think eyes don't look like that, but they do feel like that. They're these lumpy things on your face, and your nose ends up being a triangle. It doesn't look like that, but it's pointy, and so it's almost like they're describing what they know these things.
And when I said hands as well, I know there's some sort of early childhood studies theory that the reason that hands are always really big is because that's what kids see as well.
Navigate the world.
Like they see kids, and hands are really important to them as well, because hands do a lot of things as well as face.
Yeah, and
so they'll often kind of you'll get these kind of huge kind of hands.
Which is it's when we see it in a kid's drawing, we go, oh, that's not right. And maybe it doesn't end up on the fridge that day. But when we're doing concept, actually we want to, I think, bring a sense of that back. It might be that you design a character with a big hat. And one of the reasons why when you get stylized work, you might make that hat even bigger. It's not because of the 2D shape it's producing necessarily. It's because it has a feel and a weight. And when we're making it bigger, we're almost saying it's more important in some way or another. Like a child would make the hands bigger because they think they're more important. And so, I am sort of feeling my way around, and it's not something that necessarily our students get a grip on until they're maybe in their second or third year. Just this understanding that, if I have a plane, that I could stack them, but have the perspective change, and then maybe I could have one that's up here as like a lid that's being plunked onto the other ones or something else. And they all have like a rhythm as well. And so I'm here advocating for concept art to get a bit more fine arty, a bit more artsy fartsy. There are rhythms and patterns and relationships between objects that I think are so interesting. And this is maybe just one of the ways that I'll practice it. There's all sorts of weird shapes. They tend to be like cubes. Pringles, I'll do quite a lot.
Yeah. They're very tasty.
Yeah.
The fifth food group, the Pringle.
I'm waiting for my sponsorship deal with them. I think that would be quite.
Well, I mean, once you pop, then don't come at us, internet, for copyright. I didn't finish the catchphrase.
Oh.
So in terms of, you sort of said earlier that we teach this, and we teach from foundation all the way through to MA level. But we also ask people to work on their portfolios. So can you just sort of take us through a little bit of the kinds of things that we teach, but also perhaps we could talk about portfolios a bit later. But because I kind of often jokingly refer to it as cars and guns and guns and cars. But we don't just teach cars and guns and guns and cars. That's a really very binary, and certainly the work that I see that the students are producing is not that.
This is in particular cars and guns and guns and cars. But we teach effectively your entire first and foundation year, if you chose to do a foundation year on concept art, is all about fundamental art skills. And a lot of that is, it's not necessarily about your wrist and your ability to put down, although that sort of factors into it as well. A lot more of it is about observation. And so these, if I say so myself, like this Ferrari drawing looks quite nice. I think it doesn't look nice because I've put down certain shapes in a certain way. I think it looks nice because I'm noticing things about a Ferrari that someone who is completely unfamiliar with drawing or completely unfamiliar with that subject might not pick up on.
Yeah.
So there are like subtle chamfered edges and intakes and like the shapes that are going on. Someone else might simplify them in a different way. For me, the biggest thing I noticed is it's almost a Pringle, or I think its proper name is some kind of parabolic curve, but it's almost like the front of it is making that Pringle shape.
Oh yeah, on the bonnet, yeah.
And so like picking up on that and then being able to rotate and draw that, they're two separate skills, but it's the picking up on it that we're really trying to train. And one of the things we say to our students, as was officially coined by Craig Mullins many years ago, is that they should draw all the time, even while asleep and in the shower. And when we say draw, we don't mean with a sketchbook, because it would get quite soggy, or it might fall off your bed or something. The drawing is in the observation. And so
yeah.
I think I realized at one point how sad I was when I had a dream that I was on like an island, and there were giant sheep and giant wolves after those sheep. Mm-hmm. And there were these huge, like cathedral-sized thatched houses. And I looked up at the thatched roof on one of the houses, and I thought in my dream, I wonder how I would draw that. And it was so scary. I woke up. So I really was drawing while I was asleep. And we want our students to get to that level. I'm looking at the camera right now. I'm looking at all the intricate little bits and pieces. And part of me is thinking, how would I represent those in line or in shape? And then the other part of me is thinking, how would I take those and rearrange them or jumble them up in some kind of way?
It's funny actually, because I've been watching Critical Role a lot, and I'm watching it with adverts in it, and there is a specific advert of a very similar electronic device disassembling itself and then coming back together again, which is a real kind of classic advert of sort of, look what it's inside, it's very complicated, but again, I can feel that kind of visualization. And it's funny actually, it sounds very much like writing as well. So at the moment I'm doing some writing about Doctor Who and games.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of writing while you're sleeping, or just doing it all the time, you're sort of constantly looking at things and thinking, how might it be like that? There's been a new series recently of a 5-part Doctor Who episode. And I found it really difficult to watch it without thinking of the thing that I'm writing. So, and this happened during my thesis as well, which was about war studies. I couldn't watch movies without finding the holes in it. And sometimes it's really amazing because you're just kind of like, oh yeah, this is really important. And it becomes a bit self-referential. But at the same time, it's really exciting because you're constantly looking at something and thinking, oh, that's relevant, and that works. And here's how I put that together. And yeah, I understand that thought process.
Yeah, it can be a little bit exhausting sometimes as well. And sometimes it can, I think the bit that some of our, I don't want to make it sound like a bad thing necessarily, because I think the pros outweigh the cons, but some of the things our students aren't quite prepared for is like the toll that takes in terms of constantly, some of my favorite media, I almost can't consume it anymore, because as I'm watching it, I've got concept art brain rot, and everything. I was watching Welcome to Derry, the new series. I won't spoil anything. But there are so many shots in that, just camera angle wise, where you can tell that you're about to be surprised by something. And as soon as you can tell you're about to be surprised, I just keep turning to my fiance and going, oh, I bet
this is going to happen.
This is going to happen in about 5 seconds. And then it happens, and it's like, oh, I ruined the surprise for myself, because I knew it was coming.
Yes, because you can feel the setup happening.
Yeah.
By the
I used to remember looking at some of my favorite concept art and just being so amazed and wowed. And you do lose that at some point. I can't say that there's been an image that I've looked at recently, maybe in the past few years, where I've looked at it and I've really gone, oh, how did they do that? You just know. It's like seeing behind the magic curtain and understanding how a trick works. And I'm glad I do, but it's interesting to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, turning your brain off is a thing. I think, I mean, for me, I sort of, when that happens, I try to enjoy it for what it is anyway, despite the fact I know what it is.
Yeah.
And I think you want to stop yourself from feeling kind of, oh, I'm very smug and I know what's going to happen here. I think the example that has kind of been going through my head a little bit when I heard that I was going to be doing this is weirdly not a game, but it was K-pop Demon Hunters, which has got a huge amount of body dimorphism of, really kind of different poses in the ways that the characters look and the way their faces change. And they've recently been actually showing some of the concept art a bit as a December gift to people.
Yeah, I saw you can look through the entire art book online with the soundtrack playing.
Yes, yeah.
Which is quite something.
Yeah, and some of the really sort of fascinating storyboarding on it, which one of the things that I noticed is that they clearly worked out a lot of things about how the movie was going to be, and I wonder how much of it was slightly retrospective as well, because there's some images where you're like, well, that's their exact costume, or
they tend to do that. It's getting better. It used to be when I was a student that if you wanted to get your hands on any art books, you would get them, and then you'd be a bit dismayed because none of it was really concept art. It was post-production work. It was work done for marketing or whatever else. Or in some cases, they would just they would claim it was an art book, and it would just be screenshots from like the in-game characters.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so it's getting better. We're seeing some actual concept art now. I think maybe it used to be that people didn't want to reveal the secrets of the industry in some way, but that's not so much of an issue anymore.
Because I think, famously, Macquarie's early Star Wars shots actually show Luke as a female character. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an example of the other way around, where it's not. And Darth Vader's very thin as well.
Yeah,
so they put a lot more bulk onto David Prowse to sort of make him
playing around with
a bit more scary,
something everywhere else. But
yeah,
I wish I could re-experience some of that early stuff and hold on to it, because it was so inspiring at the time that it almost seems a shame not to have it. But
yeah, so what did you take inspiration from? Like, again, when did you start, or what was it that made you want to?
I did art and design, A-level, and I was surprised. I think most students will have the experience of almost assuming that their path is the default.
Yeah.
Because in my head, it was like everyone arty who was my age did GCSE art, then art A-level, and then they would go to university to do art. Mm-hmm. And to get to university and find out that like none of my fellow students did art at A-level was almost confusing for me. They had done adjacent more games related things, BTECs in games design and whatever else. And honestly, I think it gave me almost an edge in the sense that I had a more broad appreciation for painting and drawing, and outside of the realm of games altogether. So a lot of the things that have inspired me, my parents had an Edmund Blair Leighton painting. I think it's the Lady of Shalott, just hanging on our bathroom hallway wall. I would always see that going past. And my mum used to do watercolor paintings. And I remember going to the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool and seeing the John Singer Sargent painting that's there. And so much of that inspired me that I really wanted to create images that had some kind of sense of realism and storytelling and atmosphere. And at the time when I was looking at prospective universities, I was kind of disappointed that a lot of the fine art courses, they're not like Russian or Chinese academic painting courses. They're very, I don't want to be insulting, they're very stereotypically fine arty. Yeah. In the sense that it's more about the meaning behind the art. I mean, on one of the open days, I remember seeing literally like a Jackson Pollock-esque, loads of splats on a canvas, which is, if you like that kind of thing, it's fine. And here was me thinking, now I want someone that's going to teach me about anatomy and perspective and lighting so that I can render these realistic scenes out. And then I found concept art, and I was like, this is that thing. Even if I don't want to work in the games industry, this is the course that is going to give me the information I need to make the images that I want to make, basically. Yeah. And so, because that's what inspired me. That's how I sort of got into it. I didn't actually play that many games. I'm not much of a gamer. I tend to play a couple of games here and there that are like multiplayer with my friends, almost like party games. Yep. I like Dark Souls.
Along with all of the others, not every other student, but goodness.
Yeah, it's very
Souls like very popular.
But I think a lot of people, if you're like me and you like Dark Souls 1, again, you're not appreciating it as a game. As a game, it's pretty janky and unfinished and whatever else. But the art direction of it is really something. Yeah. It's so unique and interesting. And maybe part of the fact is that because it's drawing on a lot of like Japanese influences, whereas growing up, a lot of the games I played were obviously very Western. And so it's different in that way. But yeah, not many games, much more of an interest in art. And as one of the things we try and drill into our students is like go to those art galleries, see that like your favorite splash art from League of Legends is actually not that far off of like an Alphonse Mucha painting. Nope. Or any of these other things. And there's such a wealth of history to be appreciated that I think it would be a shame to sort of compartmentalize everything and just say, no, I only like art made by people who work on video games that I've played.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got a lot of galleries really close by as well, because Birmingham obviously has a rotating exhibition. I saw the Renaissance one that was there this time last year, which was absolutely amazing, actually. And interestingly, more Doctor Who, I was listening to a Doctor Who book that was set in Birmingham. And he went in and he said, when I went in, he said, would you like the tour guide? And I said, no, I'm actually listening to something that is kind of putting me in the mood.
Right.
Walked into the exhibition, was looking at all the, the really sort of fantastic stuff that they had in there, looked up, and there was a friend of mine who has written about Doctor Who before, just appearing. She live in Birmingham. But it was also, she'd been giving a lecture about something else, and she said, I just wanted to come and see it.
Just have a snoop around.
And certainly also with Salford, really close by, there's a lot of exhibitions and stuff up there as well. Like it's a good place to go to art if you want to go in art. So
yeah, I think there's a tendency now that everything's available online, that some of these in-person places are underappreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I think also particularly to do with galleries, when you go, seeing the way things are hung and the way that they've decided to exhibit things is really interesting. I saw Victor Hugo over the summer, and I've missed Ursula Le Guin, but Ursula Le Guin's maps are down in London, really, really small exhibit. And they've done a whole load of things where they've painted her maps onto different surfaces. So there's kind of cloth where they're her maps, and there are various other different things. But again, like, for me, the Wizard of Earthsea series was a real formative read when I was a kid. It definitely is one of the things that got me into science fiction and games. Definitely. It's very, sort of that idea of bringing things over.
Yeah. For me, it's you can't be like the scale of a gallery, because when so many of the paintings, I feel sorry for people who are only ever going to see them on a 16:9 little monitor or whatever else. And sometimes they can even be almost unimpressive when you view them on like a phone.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that you go there and it's like taller than you are, and you're looking at it and
big.
You all of a sudden get this overwhelming appreciation for the work that went into it and the time that went into it, because it's so much larger, right? And so that kind of stuff. I'm always telling students to print their own work, even if they do it digitally, is just, they get some free printing credit. Just print it out, stick it on your walls, and all of a sudden I think you'll appreciate it in a very different way, because it becomes something physical all of a sudden.
No, I remember I was at PAX quite a long time ago, actually. It was in 2011. And PAX used to have a really big Magic the Gathering tournament happening at the same time. And so they have a whole load of artists there. And I was talking to them because one of the things that they do is that the tournament winners get to win a card, but it's not the Magic card. They get that as well, but they get the full illustration. But most of them had been printed off. And I remember saying to a couple of the artists, like, where can I go and buy your art? And they were like, oh, we don't have any available. Partly, obviously Magic copyrights are there.
Yeah.
But also all of their galleries were online. And they were quite surprised that people want physical copies of it, which really surprised me. And I think maybe I'd hit some odd ones, but I've got I think it's Julie Dern. I always get her surname wrong. Apologies, Julie, if you're watching. Which she's done stuff for Magic, and again, she does a lot of science fiction art. And it's a picture of a woman in a library, but it's kind of like a science fiction-y library, so all the books are sort of spinning around her,
floating.
Yeah, and she's kind of conjuring them at the same time, and it just works very well as a physical piece as well as whatever it was. She does D&D images as well. She's done a whole load of stuff for Strixhaven, I think. But yeah, no, I totally get that kind of, even if it is meant to be a virtual piece, the physicality of it, you see depth in a different way when you're looking into an image when it's actually physically there, I think.
As well. It just has such a difference.
Oh, excuse me, friend.
Oh. Little fly.
A little fly just jumped in there.
I have to edit that one out, I heard. But God, yeah. Just seeing things in person. I think people don't realize that, and it's something that I've always struggled with as a digital artist is older people, especially, who are maybe less familiar with this as like a medium. I think sometimes they have this sense that you've just clicked a button and it's appeared.
Yeah.
Which we're getting to with generative AI and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But no, a lot of the people that make this stuff, it's that they should be considered modern day masters. I mean, I mentioned Craig Mullins earlier. He's my absolute idol. I would love to meet him, but he lives on an island in Hawaii.
Okay.
So a bit far away from Stoke.
I've got some friends in Hawaii, so, I can ask.
There you go. That'd be good. See if they've spotted him out and about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Julie Dern, and again, I will check. We can always put it in the show notes. Though I've got it right. She's got a massive gallery online. But she's won Hugos, and again.
Oh, right.
And the Hugo Award for art, which is science fiction and fantasy art, usually has less artists that just produce physical stuff, and it's covers, it's games. I mean, there's a Hugo for games as well, which is repeatedly won by very lovely looking games as well. Hades won for the first time.
Hades does look so very
cute looking game, yeah. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think sort of understanding that it isn't just sort of type in a prompt, that there's a lot of...
it's the same amount of thinking that goes into it as any other piece of art out there, and I think as well, sometimes it's sniffed at a little bit because it's more commercial, and that's certainly something that our students are maybe not as aware of when they join is like how commercial it is. A lot of people that join, they draw maybe their own characters, their OCs and their D&D characters, whatever else. And then they sit down, they do a brief, and you say to them, actually, I'm your art director now.
Yes.
You're going to draw something for me, for my game or my thing, pretending to be an art director. And they realize that they don't like that.
Yeah.
They realize that all this time growing up, they've been drawing for them.
Yep. And
I think drawing for someone else is a completely different experience.
Yeah, and it's an adage in the games industry as well that developers make games for themselves, which can actually be a bit of a problem, because if they're just making games for themselves, then they're only making games for themselves.
Yeah,
it's actually, we do need a breadth of games in order for games to continue to be successful. So yeah, and again, I certainly see that with the foundation students, where they start to move from doing that. And again, a lot of them write in their first year reflection, they say things like, I hadn't realized how much I need to work on still life.
Yeah.
Well,
because if it wasn't something you wanted to do, then you wouldn't have to work on it. And if you're a fine artist, you could do that as much as you want. You could sit and do nothing but charcoal portraits.
Yep.
You'd never have to draw a car. But it's one of the reasons on concept art we really expose our students to as many different subjects as possible. So something like game art, I think, maybe I'll be corrected in the footnotes or something, you can specialize in terms of modules, and you have selective modules in your second year. Concept art, we leave it until the last moment. We almost treat that first 2 years like, I'm going to teach you how to do everything. You're going to have the broadest skill set possible. And then you can decide in your last year, this is how I want to structure my portfolio. These are the companies that I'm aiming towards specifically. And this is where I want to get into. I was looking at Larian portfolios for Baldur's Gate 3 earlier, and I was showing some of our third year students them because they were interested in working for that kind of a studio. And you immediately get an understanding of the sort of work that you would have to show off in your portfolio, whatever else. So, just do everything. And it comes back all the way back to that diagram that I've turned off on the screen, which is that 2D versus 3D. And drawing is just drawing. If you understand that, in essence, this Ferrari, let's see, I'll do it on a separate layer because I'm smart. I don't want to destroy my own work. But if you understand that, in essence, this Ferrari is like a box, and then maybe from that box you've shaved off, or beveled just that edge to get it to slant forward, and then maybe you beveled this back bit. It's almost like we did a developer mode episode with Chris Pyle in Fusion 360, and it's almost a very, very similar way of thinking. It's like cutting away from one side or the other to make this stuff. I just had my OneDraw episode. Maybe I can pull up some of this stuff. But these, I'm just comfortable enough with drawing at this point that I just draw it. I just put my pen down and I draw a Ferrari. Then I'm almost imagining that maybe it's like a Ferrari and a wizard.
I was going to say, yeah.
We can work on that. We can workshop it. There you go. And I could draw like a big wizard hat or something on it as well. And I think maybe we will. So
Fireball.
I'll pull that to the...
Fireball.
I could. Some kind of nitro fireball. But when our students are doing this, that cube example, we get them to draw cubes.
Yeah.
So, without revealing my entire OneDrive, which is difficult. Now, I don't know if the images are going to appear. Maybe not. Have another PSD instead. So on this PSD, I was learning how to draw birds. Well, So I was not in my car phase, I was in my bird phase. And when I'm doing some of these, I am drawing them out first. You can't see because I've hidden it. Oh, there you go. So here are some, they're censored enough. Some human beings, right? And so all of these are from my imagination. I didn't have any references. I've done so much life drawing and whatever else for the past 7 years that I can just draw them. But in my head, and I did these as an example for a student, this is almost what I'm thinking about. It's like a square, and then you've got some scissors and you just chopped halfway up to make the legs so that they can separate. And you can take that cuboid and you can bend it over and rotate it and whatever else. And we really want to think in the simplest terms possible. So it's mostly cubes and cylinders. In fact, let's draw a little figure. Everyone likes figure drawing. It's the flashiest. I think more than half of our students, when they join, they want to be character artists.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't want to see a cool character?
Yeah. And I think, as you said, also, it's often where students come in from as well as the entry point of, I've been drawing, or, anime, obviously, huge influence. So there's a lot of sort of taking from that, which makes a lot of sense, because
it makes it, if that's the media they're consuming, then yeah, that's fine. I'm not. None of us are on concept. We're not in the business of sneering at anime. I find you get that a lot from our teachers, is that it's childish in some way.
I've also heard students say this as well, that again they actually find the freedom to draw things that are things that they are interested in. And I think, as you say, that going back to more classically presented art is really useful, but actually there's that relief that they have as well, that they're like, actually, this is, I've chosen game art for this very specific reason.
Because this is what I want to do.
This is what I want to do. And then I've arrived, and I'm still a little bit worried that people are going to say, oh, God, but actually they don't. And that's the starting point.
Yeah. And there are so many booming businesses, anime is mega profitable. And you're seeing a lot more. I think a few years ago, it probably wasn't commercially viable in the West. You would have to move to Japan, and then why would they hire you when they're probably more likely to hire a Japanese person that's been living and breathing it their entire life. But we are getting a kind of animeization, I think, of a lot of Western media. And so, those skills.
And actually you say that, but obviously very different country, but similar kind of issues. I've been in China a couple of times this year and spoke to some people from Tencent. And one of the things that they said is that they're actually very much in the market for world builders and artists.
Right.
Because whilst they're very good at coding, and coding sort of from a very early age, so you're doing Python when you're aged about 6, which is amazing, but they actually don't teach Python or C++ as gaming languages. They teach them as
like
programming languages. Yeah. So actually, the things that the Tencent developers were saying, they were world builders. They said, we're looking for people to do world building, and also, whilst their style of art is is quite defined, it's in quite short supply. So again, I think, excuse me. It's interesting to see that the internationalism of employment is becoming a thing as well. So, yeah.
It's definitely gone very, very global, which is to the benefit of our students if they go wherever they want.
Yeah. And work from home is a much bigger thing now as well. So
yeah, post-COVID, that's true. Tons and tons of remote work.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of taking just boxes, and they're not. If I'm putting an extra notch in them here or there, they're not progressing in any kind of meaningfully complex way past being a box. So I've taken a box, chopped off the front plane, and then I've like almost Booleaned in a cylinder. And that form is a form that you can learn to draw, and is effectively like the front slope of like someone's chest.
Yeah.
And you could make it even more complex. You could say when it comes to the back, we're going to slope it back down as well, so that this part that's bumping out could represent like the shoulder blade, the scapula, and then it goes back in. Then I get some kind of bendy bit, which tends to just be like a cylinder, and that's like your stomach. That's almost the most flexible part of your torso in some way. And then I get this pelvis, and I really like to represent the pelvis. It's going to sound silly. It's like a Lego character's underpants.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Like that little Lego piece that sits there. And then I can put on legs, and legs are cylinders. And we can do it so easily, step by step. We can say, look, here's a normal cylinder. So it has the two sides are parallel. It's got like a uniform width. And in order to make it reflect something like a thigh, all we do is we keep the top ellipse on the cylinder the same size. We make the bottom ellipse smaller. And then all of a sudden you've got this like tapered thing. It's almost like a chicken drumstick, maybe. And if we can take that chicken drumstick and then put it on here in perspective, and then put it on there as well, and then put some legs on, and then some feet, then you can see very quickly we're beginning to develop a character. The head, I might just do a cube. You can construct it in more complex ways, but for now, I think that's fine. And then again, just like cylinders for arms, right? And so all of a sudden, you can take something very simple, like a cube, and it is like playing with Lego or like playing
and the way you've put it together is just kind of bolting it together.
You're just building it, and you can imagine that if I can build it like this, well, then I can take those same cubes and I could build a deer or a house or a car or anything. And so if I were to ask any applicants or students to do anything, it would be try and move from that 2D sense of drawing to that 3D sense of drawing to understand the form that's sitting underneath them, basically. I don't do this, like I mentioned. I think you reach a point where this is mental, it's in your head. Sometimes I'll still whip it out more as like a troubleshooting tool. Yeah. It's like something's gone wrong with my drawing. Okay, let me draw a little mannequin to figure it out. Essentially, yeah.
Cool. So again, I guess, so to close up, because we've only got a couple of minutes left, if you were going to give some advice to somebody who was putting together a portfolio for applying, what kind of things would you be looking for?
I want to see a little bit of iteration. I don't need to see much. I'm not assuming that everyone's sat at home drawing sketchbooks full of their own characters. The main thing I want to see is life drawing. So we talk about that sense of 2D versus 3D.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we do life drawing, and we do it for 2 years, and why so many places recommend it and why it's so useful is because even though you're copying the shapes in front of you, you're still working in 3D because you're using your binocular vision. So you're actually receiving 2 different images that are at different distances, and you can pass depth from that. And so that understanding of 3D space is so nice to see in a portfolio because I sort of know when I see it that I can take that person and I can teach them this stuff. They'll just slot right in. So life drawing, I think most people think of as being like a naked lady on a chaise lounge with loads of cushions and blankets. It doesn't have to be. It can be family pet.
Yeah, I know we've had dogs in, and we've had hawks as well.
We've had birds of prey, dogs, men at arms, people in armor smacking each other over their heads, all sorts. Yeah. So life drawing, I'd like to see some little sketches of characters, but I don't need to see many. And I guess the final thing is most places recommend that you have, you just show off your 1 or 2 best pieces. Quantity over quality is, for the first time ever, maybe what we want to see. We want to see more. I want to see sketchbooks with scrappy little doodles, whatever else that you got, because a big part of concept art is that. And also tons. So
great.
There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, and
that was really interesting.
Thank you very much for watching. And I guess we'll see you in another developer mode episode.
You're definitely going to see me because I've got at least one more to do. So.
Snooping around.
All right then. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you.